Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this next episode of my podcast. My name is Andrea Bleck. Today's topic is something that I know is extremely important. It's extremely serious, especially after everything we've gone through as a society the past few years with the pandemic and then with inflation, with crazy politics stuff. All of that, not only like the pandemic had a lot of physical harm, obviously, but the mental side of it is also very serious. The effects that it had on how we view the world, how fearful we are, how depressed or anxious we are, it has really taken a toll on people, not just physically wise, but mentally wise as well. Not to take away any of the seriousness of the physical effects, but it's been really, really traumatizing for a lot of people. And, we go right from that to inflation to all of this stuff in the news, politics. So I think now, more than ever, we really need to bring attention to the importance of normalizing mental health. It has always been important. And I think recently we have been making strides to get rid of that stigma surrounding mental health that has been just attached to mental health forever. So I do recognize and I acknowledge that we have come a long way with all of the raising awareness of mental health and trying to normalize it. But we still have a long way to go. So I think that this message needs to get out there. The stigma just needs to completely end. I know it's probably a slow process, but I would like to do my part to help keep it moving in the right direction. If you guys know me personally, or if you've been watching my podcasts, you'll probably know that I am a huge advocate of mental health awareness. I have had so many mental health struggles in my life. I am working on them. They are getting better, but I still have them. And it's something that is, I believe, a lifelong journey. So I believe that it is important to get this message out there. I don't understand why physical health is so much more important to people than mental health. I guess I understand maybe what the reasons could be. Like, for one, mental health is invisible, whereas physical health a lot of times can be visible, but also if someone's in pain physically, you can't always see it. Maybe people think that if someone is suffering with their mental health, that makes them weak. And especially with the male population, it's been kind of a thing for guys to man up and not show their feelings, not even address their feelings themselves. So I definitely understand why boys and men, have been struggling with mental health for that reason, that it is just considered by a lot of people, not by all, but it's considered being a baby to be sensitive or address your mental health issues. I think another reason that it's not as normalized as physical health is because the idea that people could easily lie about their mental health. And I mean, yeah, people could be absolutely lying about if they feel depressed or anxious, but people could be lying about physical pain too. No matter what you talk about, people could be lying about it. So, if that is the main reason that mental health is not taken as seriously as physical health, I think that is BS, because for the people that actually are struggling mentally and do need help, it's doing them a disservice to not provide all of the resources that could be provided to them, just so that the people who are faking it don't get help for no reason because they don't actually need it. So, yeah, we're just gonna have to take a loss on that if we do offer these resources to everybody, people could take advantage of them and pretend to have issues that aren't actually there. But that's going to happen in all areas of life. There are people that take advantage of what is being offered. There are people that lie about what they want or need. And so just to not offer mental health services because of that reason, that's not an excuse. That's just not a good reason. So, here are some of my thoughts on the situation with mental health and how it needs to become more normalized. So, there is a huge emphasis on getting physicals. You need to go to the doctor every year and get your physical. Kids need to get physicals to be cleared for sports. But what about, I don't know, what would they be called? Mentals? You go to a physical for physical health and you go to a mental for mental health. Why aren't those a thing? Why aren't they included in the physical? I don't know about you guys. I think I'm pretty sure what the answer is, but anytime that you have gone to the doctor, or not even just a primary doctor, but any kind of specialist, any medical professional, have you ever been asked about your mental health? Unless you brought it up. For me personally, the only time I have been asked about my mental health was postpartum, because of postpartum depression being huge. And I'm not saying that it's not important, because I've been through that. I know it's real. I'm glad that it is so talked about, and I'm glad that the medical field does address postpartum depression. But at the same time, what about during the pregnancy? I may have been asked about my mental health a little bit, but now looking back, I think it's just because I brought it up. What about when people aren't pregnant? What about when they're not planning on being pregnant and it's just a normal checkup? What if they're a kid? What if they are a male? Why is mental health not addressed in a normal routine checkup like physical health? When I got the postpartum surveys asking about my mental health, it was pretty in depth. It was, out of the last 7 days, how many days did you feel anxious? How many days did you feel depressed? How many days did you have an alcoholic beverage? How many days did you do drugs? How many days did you feel like the world is not a good place? And these questions, like, although I did have postpartum depression on top of regular depression, the questions were kind of surprising to me. And they shouldn't be. These should be normal questions that are asked throughout a person's whole life. Maybe not their whole life, I don't know, but starting pretty young. At least they should be adjusted to be worded differently for kids, but the message should still be the same. Do you feel okay mentally, not just physically? So those questions were awkward for me to answer, even though I knew that I needed to answer them. but I felt uncomfortable answering them. I did answer them, but it shouldn't feel uncomfortable, is the point that I'm making. They shouldn't come as a shock. You shouldn't only be asked those questions after you've had a baby, because there are a lot of situations that don't involve being postpartum where somebody could feel not okay mentally. So, on that note, I don't understand why not only is it not talked about in doctor's appointments, but what about in school? What about, we receive all this education on like health, nutrition, fitness. I mean, I still think we should get more educated in schools on the importance of fitness and nutrition, but they do have health class and they talk about it. What about mental health? I think it's something that should be addressed and talked about at a young age. Just like, why don't they talk about taxes or finances in general in school? There's all those like funny memes out there that it's like, oh yeah, I'm so glad I spent years of my life balancing equations and chemistry. That's really prepared me for filing my taxes. But it's true. At the time, we are made to think that all of these things we are learning are important for life after school, when we all know the majority of what we learn, we don't remember it because we didn't need to use it. So, in my opinion, mental health should be discussed in school and not just after something bad happens, because that was my experience too. We did address suicide and suicide prevention, but only, as far as I remember, after something bad actually happened. So I think that it needs to be addressed and talked about in all aspects of, in the medical field, in education, because that could help us prevent these serious situations. So just like there are preventative measures for physical health, at a certain age, you go and you get a colonoscopy, you get a mammogram, for example. Even if you don't think anything's wrong, they just become routine exams. And so many physical issues are caught through these routine tests, even if you didn't feel any symptoms, but they're caught because it was a routine exam. So why don't we have these measures in place to catch a mental health issue before it gets worse? There are a lot of symptoms of mental health struggles that could be caught if we did a routine exam. So this way, the early signs could be caught before even the patient knows or realizes that they're struggling mentally, because there are a lot of times where we feel certain things, but we don't know why. So we kind of just live with it. That's what happened to me with my anxiety and depression. I just got so used to it. I thought that's how it was. That's just how life is. Whereas if I had gone to a routine checkup and my doctor had asked me these serious questions, have you felt this way in the past 7 days? And I answered, they could have told me that is actually not normal and we can help you. So we can't just keep thinking that people will realize there's a problem and figure it out on their own or ask for help, because sometimes, a lot of times, when it comes to mental health, people don't even know there's a problem because your brain is complicated. You just think it's normal, or you just get used to it. Also, even if people did reach out, and people do reach out for help for mental health, even if they do that, it could be too late to have an effective intervention, because a lot of times people will not ask for help until the problem is so huge that they can't take it anymore. And a lot of times when people do ask for help, it is made extremely difficult for them to actually get help. I have experienced this. I have sought counseling. I looked for therapy when I was in the middle of my first pregnancy. And it was so hard to find somewhere that would actually take my insurance. And even if they did, it still costs quite a bit of money. It was hard to find the kind of therapist that I needed, because there are so many different branches of mental health, like eating disorders, OCD, could have bipolar, depression, anxiety. And at the time, it was very hard for me not only to find one covered by my insurance, but also to find one that fit my needs. And so, could I have done more work to find one? Yeah, but I was not. The reason I needed to find one was because I wasn't feeling good mentally. And so people who are not feeling good mentally, if they are asking for help, that's huge. And then if the help they're asking for is difficult to obtain, there's a good chance that they're going to be like, okay, never mind, because they are not in a good place. So they're not going to have the energy or the mental capacity to be like, no, I need this, or no, I will keep looking, I will keep fighting for this. And so that is what happened to me. After multiple phone calls and looking online, finding places that said they took my insurance, but then it turns out they didn't, it was extremely defeating. And I thought, screw it, never mind, I'll figure it out on my own. And I think that's what a lot of people run into. And this time, I did not give up, but that's just because I was at my breaking point. And so after phone call after phone call, referral after referral, I finally found somewhere, and they're amazing. But it shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't. It should be like calling a doctor. And another reason that people might not reach out for help, so one of the reasons, like I said, could be that they don't even know they have an issue. Another reason is they wait too long to ask for help, and when they do ask for help, it's hard to get. But another reason that they don't ask for help, it could be because they're embarrassed, because of this stigma that is ingrained in our minds, that it is embarrassing to ask for help for a mental health struggle. So this is not okay. It's really not okay. And it needs to become easier to reach out and receive mental health help. I'm going through my notes because I was writing all this down, and the farther down the page I get, the harder it is for me to read my handwriting, because I was just getting really into it. So I do want to make sure I did not miss anything before I go to the next page. Let's see. Yes. Yes, got it. Okay. So, what are the results of people feeling afraid or embarrassed to reach out, or people reaching out and it being difficult for them to receive help, or people not even realizing they do need help because of how little mental health is addressed in our lives? So what could all of this lead to? It could lead to a lot of bad decisions. And I'm not excusing anyone's bad decisions, but all I'm saying is let's have a little compassion and empathy and think of why they maybe decided to go and make these bad decisions. For instance, drugs, drug abuse, and alcohol abuse. I feel like a lot of times when people hear, oh yeah, they're in rehab, or, they went to jail for drugs, or they, were driving under the influence. Yeah, it's horrible. And a lot of people will roll their eyes and be like, of course it was drugs. Of course it was drinking. But let's take a second and think why they got to that point. Drugs and alcohol is a drug, but you know what I mean? They alter our brain chemistry. They alter our state of mind. So when somebody turns to these things, and I don't mean just occasionally, like I'm not even saying the occasional drink. Yeah, a lot of people do that and it's fun. It's, a good time. I'm talking about when people feel the need to continuously turn to these things. Do you think it's because they are happy? If they were happy and mentally healthy, I don't believe that they would feel the need to turn to something that would alter their brain chemistry. The same for people who not necessarily use drugs or alcohol, but people who do make erratic decisions, like things that could hurt people you love, things that could hurt yourself, whether physically or emotionally or both. It's because people are not in the right state of mind. There is an imbalance, and maybe these things that they are choosing to do give them a rush of dopamine, give them, some serotonin. They feel these happy hormones that they don't normally feel at all. That should be there, but they're not. And so they are searching for this feeling. And once they get it, their brain wants it again because it feels good. Even though we know drugs are bad, there's got to be a reason that people still do it. And I think when it does come down to it, a lot of the time, it's because they want that feeling, that rush. And so many times this does lead to irreparable damage, physically and emotionally. Some people, as we know, get so mentally ill, their mental health is so bad that they would rather die. So we as a society need to do everything that we can to make sure that people don't get to the point where they would rather be dead than to live in their own mind a second more. And so I know that saying it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. While from the outside we can say that and it makes sense to us, but to somebody who is going through something and has mental health obstacles and issues, it does not feel to them like it's a temporary problem, if that makes sense. It feels like their only way out of a very, very real, serious, and permanent problem. And so I think that we absolutely need to do more work. We need to do better and try to help people not get to this point where they feel like they need to turn to these things as an escape. We need to address mental health. We need to normalize it. We need to make it accessible to help people who need help with mental health. And I will advocate for this forever. It is something that needs to change. And like I said, I think it has been getting better. The stigma has been changing towards mental health, but we are not there yet, and we need to make more progress, because not only is mental health important in and of itself, but mental health is important for physical health as well. So, like, for people who know that they need to, say, lose weight and they need to exercise, exercise is something physical, and exercise can improve your physical health. But why do people not do it, even though they know the importance of it? Because of their brain. Because they don't want to do it. Because they set an alarm and their brain talks them out of it. Because they get down on themselves when they're not seeing progress as fast as they want. Because the negative self-talk. All of these things that are going on in their brain, and your brain is extremely powerful. So, in a lot of cases, your physical health is a direct correlation to how well you're doing mentally. And that's why you see these people who are extremely successful in sports, in any career, in reaching their goals. They have to be mentally strong. Because physical health isn't going to take you all the way. You've got to be strong mentally. So, something else that I didn't mention before, something that is another side effect and another example of what people turn to when they are lacking the happy hormones, food. And it's just such a turning to food for emotional well-being is so normalized that it's kind of like comical in some cases. Like, oh, I'm upset, I'm going to eat this pint of ice cream. It's funny, but when you think about it, you're escaping your feelings or you're escaping reality by eating, which is causing a chemical reaction in your brain and is causing a release of dopamine. That's why people who are extremely overweight and obese, there's something going on mentally, because in order to get that overweight, you would need to overeat to the point where it hurts. So why would your body, if nothing was wrong mentally, why would your body want you to keep doing that to yourself? Making yourself sick, making yourself unable to move without pain because you're so overweight, creating other health problems, heartburn, cholesterol issues, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes. There is something happening when the food is being eaten that is making it worth it to this person, which is the dopamine rush. So the only difference between a food addiction and a drug addiction is that a food addiction is way more acceptable and eating food is legal. So it's not really considered something so serious because it's food. And so when someone is doing something that is damaging to them, there is a reason. There is almost always, if not always, a reason they're doing it, and that reason is mental. So, yeah, that is my little, I don't know if I'd call it a rant or just pleading for something to change in society surrounding mental health, how we acknowledge it, address it, treat it. But all in all, mental health needs to be normalized, and it needs to be more easily accessible to get the support and the help needed in order to maybe not cure our mental health issues, but to really help make progress and improve them. I think I will come out with a part 2 to this. But if anyone has any questions or any feedback, I would love to hear. Please share this video, not just because, I want you to share my videos, but because this message is so important, it needs to get out there. So for the sake of everyone's mental health awareness, please give me your feedback and please share this video so that it can get out in the community where it needs to be. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.